the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, specifically Mississauga. We would also like to acknowledge the North Channel Métis Council. We say miigwech to thank Indigenous people for taking care of this land from time immemorial. We are called to treat this sacred land, its plants, animals, stories, and its peoples with honor and respect. Prior to beginning tonight's agenda, I would ask that each councillor who is present via this video conferencing to answer the roll call when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Paula Summers.
Present.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar.
Present.
Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Wells.
Present.
Councillor H.P. Roy.
Present.
Councillor Jennifer Pastorero.
Present.
Thank you. Today marks the beginning of the nomination process for the municipal election. Candidates who wish to run for council can access a package through the Town of Blind River website or via the clerk's office. All candidates will require having an appointment with the clerk or deputy clerk. Please call the Town of Blind River to confirm a mutually convenient time and date. Blind River Minor Baseball and the municipality collaborated and were successful in receiving funding from the Ontario Trillium Foundation. The Town of Blind River is built on partnerships such as the one we treasure with Blind River Minor Baseball. New gear for our youth is arriving daily, and bats, helmets, scorebooks, balls, and more are filling up our arena lobby. Our river field that is to host T-ball and coach pitch will see some much needed TLC. We are so excited that our second field at the town park will be improved, and volunteers will have access to training, and our kids will have new equipment, and the Blind River Baseball League will have all the PPE and cleaning products to promote safety for all of the young and the young at heart. Thank you so much to the Ontario Trillium Foundation for choosing Blind River. We are so excited to show off our home run project. Next, the town staff is going to be posting signage throughout the community and at your playgrounds. Staff have ordered new play equipment and are working on both adding, fixing, and improving Rousseau, Sherbourne, Forest Glen, LeBoeuf, and the town park. This project is a multi-step process, and we look forward to your patience while the equipment is on site. Blind River is busy building. The community improvement plan has 5 new projects underway, as well as several wrapping up, and we can't wait to see even more accomplished in 2022. To our merchants and property owners, we say thank you for helping us improve our community. This month, the Town of Blind River is recognizing Community Living Algoma. This is an opportunity to learn more about a great organization and all of their accomplishments. May is also a month where we recognize our healthcare professionals and all that they have done, especially during the pandemic. We salute our physicians, nurse practitioners, nurses, personal support workers, allied health professionals, administrative, and maintenance support staff. And everyone knows that on Sunday, May 8th, it's Mother's Day. And to all the moms in Blind River, we hope you have a monumental day. You are the backbone of your family and our community, and council wishes you the very best on this special occasion. And last, but certainly not least, we continue to pray for everyone in Ukraine, and we hope this war ends quickly. And I know I've been saying this for the last couple of months, but we truly do believe and pray that it does end soon. Now, without further ado, turning to tonight's agenda, I have a motion from Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council approve the agenda, the addendum to the agenda, and the closed meeting agenda as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing no hands going up, I will take that as a no. I have a move by Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar. Be it resolved that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 19th as presented. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. And is there any business that council wishes to discuss as a result of the previous meeting minutes? Seeing no hands going up, we can turn to item number 8 on your agenda. We have 2 presentations tonight, and the first is from the PUC with regards to our annual DWS report, and Carla Buckner from the PUC is here. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you. I was going to say, I'm able to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint.
Super.
Are you able to see my screen?
We are.
Awesome. Okay, again, thank you for allowing me to present the Drinking Water Quality Management Standard Report to Owner. Under the Safe Drinking Water Act, we are required to review all our systems within the drinking water system annually. And we hold a meeting with our top management to review the past year's shortfalls, suitability and adequacy of the effectiveness of the QMS. And we held a meeting in March of 2022, attended by our executive lead of operations and engineering, myself, and we have 2 supervisors in water treatment. So we are mandated to discuss 18 topics at the meeting, and we're going to go through each one by one, as we've done this before, and we'll discuss them. Incidents of regulatory non-compliance. These are brought up during an annual inspection through the Ministry of Environment, and our most recent inspection was in October of 2021 by Patty's Drolet out of Sudbury, and there were 0 non-compliances and 2 best practice recommendations. Again, they're probably repeatable from the past, but backflow prevention policy and a bylaw for limiting access to hydrants. And our inspection revealed 100% incidents of adverse drinking water tests. We had 1 adverse water quality incident in 2021, and it was a low distribution pressure on Development Drive. And we actually put 2 businesses out of water, and we had a precautionary boil water advisory in place until we could get 2 sets of microbiological samples non-detect. Deviations from critical control points. Our critical control points are guidelines to critical processes, and we usually have alarms or strategies in place to mitigate the hazard. And in the Blind River plant, we had 6 events of high turbidity over 1 NTU. We have made a lot of gains in this plant over the years, and we've actually programmed the possibility of going over 1 NTU out now in 2022. So those 6 high events should not happen. And again, none of them were adverse water quality incidents. They were just momentarily over 1 NTU, which is the compliance limit. We also had some higher low fluoride residuals. We've had a little bit of issues with basically a pressure relief valve, and it causes it to go higher low. And again, we stayed in compliance the whole time, but we're finding out ways to make improvements on that as well. We also had some higher low chlorine residuals, and we had 5 low events that were below our lowest set point. And again, primary disinfection for contact time with chlorine was met for those 5 events. And again, we're finding ways to make improvements as we go. So we also hold annual risk assessments each year. And we go through a process of evaluating all the processes through the plant, from the raw water at the source, through the plant in each process to the distribution to the consumer. And we evaluate each step for likelihood of an event to take place, the consequent if something happens, and the detectability, as well as control measures that we identify. And some of the vulnerabilities we identified in the 2021 assessment included SCADA communications. We had several failures early in 2021. We actually did upgrade the SCADA computers. They were finally commissioned in Q4 of 2021. And it's just computers don't last forever. So we did have a few crashes along the way. The raw water flow rate capacity, we've been discussing this one for years, and we have well rehab on a cycle now that seems to work. Flocculation, we've been replacing drives on an increased frequency, and we predicted replacement for the next 10 years in the process. They've been in service for a lot of years. The filtration, we did positive action in Q4 of 2020. We topped up the anthracite in the filters, and it's improved our performance. And we also identified that the GAC, which is granular activated carbon, we do analysis every year to assess that, but we've planned for replacement and it's been budgeted for a few years now. Primary disinfection, this is again the low chlorine events that we had. We had 7 in 2020 and we had 5 in 2021. We actually talked about this in-house about adding more analyzers in a earlier stage, but we're actually adding some programming to SCADA that allows us to see the chlorine use. And if it doesn't use the required amount, it will give us an alarm before we get in a situation where we have a low chlorine event. Also our clear well inspections, the disinfection byproduct levels, which are THMs and HAAs, we are well within compliance, but we're monitoring on a monthly basis. And again, main breaks, we have a new Ministry of Environment procedure that we are under to follow once we've had the new municipal drinking water in place for 6 months, so that will come into place this summer. And again, we've been flushing dead ends for a long time. We're trying to get better records, and we've started a dead end flushing program that will take place this year that we can monitor residuals throughout the system and act on them accordingly. We also hold internal audits with our staff once a year, and our audits were in July, and we had 0 non-conformances, and we had what we call opportunities for improvement. We had 11 that were identified. We also had our external 12-month surveillance audit by SAI Global, which was in November. Again, 0 non-conformances and 2 OFIs. The opportunities for improvement are never lost. We have to put them on a list basically, and we review them quarterly to see if they can be implemented to make things improved. So 2021 was the 2-year of the 3-year accreditation certification period, and in 2022 we will have 2 external audits with SAI Global. So results of relevant emergency response testing. Every year we usually do this with staff. We kind of got under the crunch last year with a lot of different things that were going on, but we were actually in contingency plan training with staff, and we had a new supervisor to the department and a temporary supervisor, and we ended up discussing all the historical events that have happened in Blind River. And we also had to submit a strike plan to the Ministry of Environment in December, and we actually had contracted staff that we brought in to ensure that we would cover operations throughout. And fortunately, our collective agreement was ratified with the union early 2022. Again, operational performance, the plant operated very well within compliance limits, and we just wanted to point out that media project that was completed in 2020. Historically, we've had some issues with filter compliance, which means that the filter compliance has to be less than 0.3 NTU for 95% of the readings in a month. And since we did that upgrade and replaced media, we've been over 99 throughout the year of 2021. Raw water supply and drinking water quality trends. We had normal seasonal flow in water quality, and we also have a raw water testing that we complete basically monthly and quarterly to monitor total organic carbon because it affects the disinfection byproducts. So we monitor TOC monthly and treated THMs. And you can see with the 10-year flow history that flows are very constant. Prior to 2012, we used to have a lot higher flows, but since 2012, we've been running the plant with the wells on 24 hours a day, and it gives a constant flows that we can see any changes easily. So Follow-up action items from previous management reviews. This document is actually a living document, and everything that we add to this has to be continued to be followed up on and resolved, or it keeps continuing into the next year. So previous items that we had concerns about were a backflow prevention program, the disinfection byproduct levels, because we've had advisories in the past. The rapid mixer was identified as there being no bypass for maintenance. Again, the primary disinfection, low residual events, the raw water capacity, the clear well inspections that we're planning to do this spring, and the dead end flushing program, and again, the municipal drinking water license and financial plan. It's for a 5-year term, but the financial plan had to be updated in order to get the license reinstated. So again, kind of repetitive, but status of management action items between reviews. We had the financial plan update, the municipal drinking water license and drinking water works permit were renewed in March of 2022. And again, we also had the PUC labor negotiations. Changes that could affect the quality management system, we feel could be legislative. And again, there was no changes to our regulations in 2021, status quo. Summary of consumer feedback. We had 5 complaints in 2021. 3 of them were based on low pressure issues, and our staff went out and did some investigation and found out they were normal for the areas of concern. And we also had a couple chlorine and taste and odor, which we found out the residuals were in the normal range expected. Resources needed to maintain the quality management system. We feel adequate resources are in place within PUC. And every year we hold an infrastructure review with staff and review all of the year's events and historical ones and try and predict what may be a priority for future years. So again, we have a list here. Some of them have been repeats from previous years. The operational plan currency, content, and updates. We're always striving for continual improvement, and there were 15 modifications to our operational plan in 2021. Summary of staff suggestions. We hold all our annual reviews with staff. We have the audits, and they always have the opportunity through basically document review that they can make suggestions. If we have an equipment change, they might make a suggestion to a procedural change, and we listen to our staff on the front line for sure. New business. There was nothing identified from our top management group, and if there's something that you would like to add, we could discuss it here. Other than that, is there any questions?
And does council have questions for Carla? Carla, maybe if you could go off of share screen, it helps me see everyone.
Sure.
Thank you. Councillor Roy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, thank you, Carla, for the presentation. I just wanted to touch on one thing. I guess you said that you had 3 complaints on water pressure. I'm just wondering, what's the average water pressure in our town? Because I've heard different numbers, and I don't remember the number we got at the meeting. So I'm going to throw that out there.
Sure. On the low end, we've had pressures identified as low as like 27, 28, I think. On the higher end, it's usually probably 50 or 55, which is considerably lower than other communities. But
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And are there any other questions for Carla? Carla, you know you've done an extensive job on your reporting when council has no questions for you. I do have a motion before council tonight. This is moved by Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar. Whereas a requirement of the Ontario Drinking Water Quality Management Standard is the implementation of an annual management review of the drinking water quality management system. Therefore, be it resolved that council accept the report to owner as presented by PUC Services, Inc. Questions, comments? other than you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Carla, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Blind River Library Board window replacement. I have two motions which I will read following the presentation. And we have guests tonight, including, I believe, Eva Whitmore, Adrian Edwards, Carol Fortin, and Sue Melcher. I'm not sure if Sue was able to come. Okay, Sue's not able to come. So I believe, Carol, you are the spokesperson?
Yes,
The floor is yours.
thank you very much. So this is the library board's response to the report regarding library window replacement from Ms. Dent to the Blind River Town Council, created March 25th of 2022. We'd like to thank you, Mayor Hagman and councillors, for agreeing to our request to speak here tonight. And we just feel that council has not had access to all the information and wish to be sure you are well informed before voting on the motion regarding new windows for the library. In January, the library board was given a quote for the replacement of all the windows in the library building, about $35,000. And we were told at that time that the town had put aside $17,500 in the 2022 budget and was requesting the library board match that amount from the library reserve fund. But the library board did not agree to this request. The library board has already approved several necessary expenditures from that reserve fund. And just a note that the 2020 operating surplus mentioned in Ms. Dent's report was an unusual occurrence as a direct result of the library building closures during COVID-19. So a December 8th resolution by our library board designated $9,000 from that fund as a contribution to balance our 2022 operating budget as per the town's request. And more recently, $15,000 was approved to replace non-functional technology, primarily the computers used daily by library patrons as well as staff. Funding has also been designated for such things as snow removal, billed by the town of Blind River, new flooring near the circulation desk, wages to keep our student who was hired in collaboration with Employment Solutions, as well as the $5,000 toward the cost of replacing the broken windows in the library building. So after these expenditures, the library reserve fund will stand at about $5,000 or $7,000, which we are keeping as a contingency fund. And please note that the technology purchases were delayed due to COVID restrictions. It seemed more logical to wait until the library was able to reopen to patrons to replace the out-of-date and non-functional equipment, which accounts for some of the accumulation of reserve funds. As a library board, we would be happy to contribute more to the windows, but the funds in the library reserve are being used to upgrade library services to our community. From correspondence and from our meeting with Ms. Dent on March 22nd, our board members were under the impression that the town was agreeable to using their budgeted funds to replace at least the 2 damaged windows at the back of the library building that have been a concern for our board for the last few years. In a February 4th email, Catherine Scott specifically stated that should the library choose not to contribute to the windows, the town will do what we can with the $17,500, which was budgeted in 2022. So to put it mildly, we were very surprised to see the treasurer's report of March 25th to council. While we agree with Ms. Dent that opening windows will increase the cost, we did feel that significantly overstates that increase. And to that point, the $5,000 that the library board has approved for window replacement is specifically meant for that extra cost of having the ability to open the replacements for the 2 damaged windows that we believe are a health and safety issue and should be replaced promptly. The library board's duty does include attention to the health and safety of patrons and staff. With the advent of COVID, priorities have to be adjusted. There are now continued calls by epidemiologists and medical experts for improved ventilation in order for us to quote unquote live with COVID in the future. As a library board, we feel it is appropriate and easy to improve ventilation and air quality by installing new windows that will open. We would like to emphasize that the library board is not requesting that town council increase the approved funding of $10,500 from the tax levy or the $7,000 from the facilities reserve. We are fully cognizant that only that amount of funding is available. And our request is to direct that funding to ensure we have repaired and opening windows in the facility soon. We estimate the available funds from the town and our $5,000 will be sufficient to replace the 2 broken windows and perhaps even 1 other window if funds allow at the front of the building, which would allow for better air circulation. As for aesthetics, it is quite likely that the windows chosen will be fairly standard and that quite similar windows will be available when future upgrades are possible. We feel that health and safety concerns outweigh aesthetic concerns in this instance. We thank the council for the use of the building and accounting services. We believe this is a common practice for libraries in small communities and a necessary contribution by the municipality in order to be able to offer library services to our citizens. The library board is proud of our vibrant and busy library. If you follow the librarian's reports, you will see that our library provides many services to our entire community. Where once the primary goal of public libraries was to provide equal access to print, we now also provide equal access to digital services. To offer the best possible opportunities to patrons, our CEO partners with a variety of community organizations. Before COVID restrictions, our library has regularly welcomed more than 1,200 patrons per month to this busy community hub. During COVID, our library at times provided the only public community access to computers. As a town council and as a library board, I believe that together we are providing an excellent and much needed service to our community. We thank you again for the time you have spent listening to our response.
And thank you for that, Carol. Has council any questions that they wish to ask either Carol Fortino or Eva Whitmore representing the library board? We also have 2 councillors representing the board. Looks like you ladies are going to, oh, no, you're not going to get off easy. Councillor Roy has a question for you.
No, I just wanted to say that I didn't get to, I did read all this presentation. For some reason, I did get kicked off of my internet at this end. It's really weird. But anyways, yeah, thanks for the presentation. I'm sorry I didn't get to hear it all, but I did read it. So thanks again and good luck on that.
I just have one question. Does the library have air conditioning?
I believe that we do have air conditioning. We have a forced air furnace, so there is air conditioning and heating. Yes.
Okay. Is there any concern about windows if you were successful in getting windows that open? Is there any concern about people leaving windows open at the end of the day?
I believe that it would become as anything when we are leaving a building where we work. There would be a checklist of things that you do at the end of your shift before you lock the door, and closing windows would then need to be added to that list. They will be It is, yes, it is my understanding they would be ones that might open down the way they do in schools. So they would be opening to the inside and would just need to be pushed closed.
Okay.
If
And
they-
there's no concern about dust coming off of Highway 17.
I feel that as a library board, especially with all the talk with regard to ventilation, it's an easy way to get fresh air into the library.
Thank you for that. We will be bringing up our motions, and that will come as on our agenda item 9.2. So Carol and Eva, thank you so much for attending tonight. We really do appreciate you coming in person. It's nice to hear the rest of the story. So I do thank you for that.
Thank you. So Sally, we can leave now, or would you like us to wait?
It's up to you. You may leave, or you can stay on. It's your choice.
Okay, thank you.
It's a public meeting. The more the merrier. We don't get that many people attending, so it's very nice having you here.
Thank
There we are. Moving on to introduction and consideration of administrative reports. As we can see, administration has been very busy with their ongoing projects update. Does council have any questions of Ms. Scott in regard to the projects update? Seeing no hands going up, I will take that as a no, but it's certainly an extensive list. Moving on to 9.2, the library window replacement. I have a motion from Councillor Stephen Wells, seconded by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar. The motion reads, be it resolved that council defer the library window replacement project and that $10,500 of the tax levy funding be transferred to the facilities reserve earmarked for library windows until such time as sufficient funding can be secured for this project. Councillor Wells?
Yes, Mayor Hagman, I'm wondering if we can move to the second motion, which is an amendment to the first,
Okay,
and that we could vote on the second one before we vote on the first one.
all right. So the second motion says, and again, this is moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar. Be it resolved that the clerk CAO directs staff to initiate the library window replacement project this year, and that $10,500 of the tax levy funding, $7,000 from facilities reserve, and $5,000 from the library reserve be used to replace 2 damaged windows at the rear of the building, and if possible, windows at the front of the building to improve ventilation, and that unused funds be transferred to the facilities reserve earmarked for library windows until such time as sufficient funding can be secured to complete the library window project. Further be it resolved that the clerk CAO requests the library board provide council with a detailed 5-year plan for unused funds in its reserve. Questions, comments? Councillor Pastorero, followed by Councillor H.B. Roy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with the second motion. I would like to see the windows that are broken at the rear at least be fixed. And as the presentation stated, they're using pretty standard windows. And one of our concerns was like a patchwork approach to having different windows. So I feel if there's standardized windows that we could at least repair the 2 that are damaged. And if there should be any funds left over, but noting this, that if this is the current contribution of the library board of $5,000, that should we need to replace further windows down the road, then there will need to be another contribution from the board to pursue that when the time comes. But yeah, I'm definitely in favor of option 2 to at least proceed with the 2 broken windows.
Thank you. Councillor Roy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I pretty much was going to say the same thing. I think that we did put the money out there. We earmarked it for this. You know, they can go ahead and we can go ahead and replace those 2, and hopefully in the future we do get we get some help from the library board to replace any more. So yeah, so I guess I'll be for this.
3 hands went up at one time. Deputy Mayor Summers, followed by Councillor Jim Dunbar, followed by Councillor Wells.
I just, thank you, Mayor Hagman. I just wanted to say that I also am in favor of the second part to get those windows at the back fixed. I think they are a health and safety issue as well. And then we can move on from there. Thank you.
And Councillor Jim Dunbar.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to give whoever the individual who came up with this second motion, good work in the compromise.
Councillor Wells, followed by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Since this has been an ongoing issue for some time, and I have heard several councillors indicate support for the motion, but may I call for a recorded vote, please, when the time comes?
You may. And Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar.
Councillor Wells beat me to the punch. I was going to ask for the recorded vote.
And Councillor Pastorero.
Sorry for the second question. I just had a quick question. Can it be this amendment to ensure that the $5,000 from the library reserve and the earmark funds are used first before we go to the levied taxation funds? So ensure that we use that 5,000 and the 7,000 first before we go to tax levy. Because if there's going to be any kind of surplus, if we only do the two, then I feel that that should not be taken out on the taxpayer.
I'm just writing that in. So I've just changed the words that 5,000 come from the library reserve, 7,000 from the facilities reserve, 10,500 from the tax levy reserve in this order. Is that sufficient? Council, Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'm just wondering, since the 2022 budget has allocated 10,500 for the project, and we have 7,000 in the reserve, would it not make more sense to spend the allocated money in the budget and leave the money in reserve?
Councillor Pastorero, you want to respond to that?
It's no matter to me because like you say, we have budgeted. I was just thinking if there are efficiencies to be found, say, for example, we're only replacing the two windows and there are efficiencies that I would want the monies from, it doesn't matter if it's facilities or taxation, that be earmarked for future projects.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar.
My wish would be that we maximize the replacement of the windows and use as much of the money as we can to replace as many as we can at this time, rather than leaving money from one year to the next or in reserves or wherever you want to leave it. It's if we can maximize what we can use this year and go forward from that.
Mhm.
Councillor Pastorero.
Thanks. Would it be possible to get an amended quote for just the I believe it was two windows in the front they had wanted that open, so the two in the back and the two in the front that open, would it be possible to get an amended quote to see how much we're spending? And either way, I'm still in favor of it being spent.
I would be curious to know the difference in cost between opening windows and fixed windows. I do have a concern of windows being left open. I know everyone is very conscientious, but it is an issue, and also with air conditioning on and windows being open, and one can defeat the other. So I'd be curious to see what the two costs would be in terms of replacement. Councillor Pastorero?
Oops, press the wrong button. Sorry to be a pest. Also on top of that, now that you mentioned that, would there be any implications as far as insurance with having windows that open versus fixed closed pane windows? That would be interesting to see as well.
Ms. Scott, I'll defer that question to yourself with regard to insurance and windows that open and close.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. To you, Councillor Pastorero. Those would all be matters that we would refer back to our insurance company. And as for the updated window quotes, we can certainly obtain those. I think they're all covered off in Councillor Wells' motion by bringing back a detailed report to council with the outcomes of the project. So it will all be part of our project management as we move forward. And just to remind council that there was a building report done with the library, and there was asbestos in and around the window area. So there may be some additional costs for removing that window and remediating the asbestos in that area. So we may be very tight with the budget that we currently have. So I'd like to leave some room based on the pricing of the windows to cover off any additional expenses that we may incur.
Great, I see no other hands going up. So on this second motion, we have a recorded vote. And I will ask Ms. Scott to call the names.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Deputy Mayor Paula Summers,
In favor.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Jim Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Steve Wells,
In favor.
Councillor HP Roy,
I'll go with it.
Councillor Jennifer Pastorero,
In favor.
Mayor Hagman.
Not in favor. Opposed.
That is carried.
Thanks, everyone. And moving on to our borrowing status, we have a notice from our treasurer, and I'd ask Ms. Dent if she could comment on the situation that we are in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know that there's any comments other than what was included in the report at this time, but if council has any specific questions, I can try and address them.
And does council have any questions? I see Councillor Wells followed by Councillor Pastorero.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I suppose I'm directing this question to the treasurer, but I read the report, and obviously we're all aware that we have had problems with Infrastructure Ontario in terms of our borrowing ability. But I'm wondering if it might be time for us to have a delegation from council, maybe the mayor and deputy mayor, the CEO clerk, to speak with them. I know you've already been talking with them, but I'm just wondering if we could apply a little more political pressure, because we all are aware that we have received, I believe it was a $4,000 payment toward the CMHC loan through the North Shore Power Group, and that we have been trying very hard to limit our spending to the best of our ability, and that we always know that there are infrastructure surprises, things that you don't anticipate until they happen, like broken sewer lines and so on, and I'm sure there are more surprises waiting out there. I'm just wondering if it would make any sense at all to have more direct communication with Infrastructure Ontario.
To answer your question, Councillor Wells, it was $4 million that we received, but we are planning a delegation. Ms. Scott, Councillor Pastorero, and myself are planning on attending AMO in August, and during that time we hope to have a delegation to share our concerns about the lending and what we're up against going forward. So we do hear you, and we will be there. Hopefully we do get that request. Councillor Pastorero, you had a question for Ms. Den?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering, because of our proactive stance on our debt this year, especially with the $4 million prepayment and the optimism that that will continue in the future, that note of going concern that's in the financial audited statements of NSPG hopefully will be removed this year because of that new agreement that we've entered into, which will be a lot more proactive on our debt. With that removal of the ongoing concern, will that help us in obtaining more funding?
To you, Madam Mayor, the short answer is no. What Infrastructure Ontario is looking for is firm, committed dollars that we actually have. They don't want best guesses or wishes or hopes. They want to see that the town of Blind River, not North Shore Power Group, the town of Blind River will have the funds available for that balloon payment at the end of the term. They were very, very clear on that. And the fact that we made that $4 million payment, there's no guarantee that we're going to get any more. So no, short answer.
Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. So I read the report also, and I believe Ms. Dent, you alluded to the idea of coming up with a plan. So I guess this plan we're talking about will wait and see until the members of council comes back from a meeting.
Sorry, Councillor Dunbar, you cut out there for a bit. I didn't hear all of your statement.
Okay, so we're going to have a meeting to devise a plan. Will we be doing this meeting to devise this plan after council has come back from their meeting with the IO?
I think our meeting, so the town's meeting, is going to be part of budget discussion. So we will need to start planning for putting money into reserve to deal with the balloon payment. We need to start putting money into reserve to deal with our infrastructure deficit. It's going to be budget discussions.
Okay.
And again, Ms. Dent, thank you so much for the hard work you do. I know it's not easy, especially when you're going up against powers that are higher than municipalities, for sure. Moving on to 9.4, insurance renewal. We have a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Fosteraro, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council accept the proposal from BrokerLink Intact Public Entities for general insurance and risk management services in the amount of $360,643 applicable tax plus applicable taxes for the period of May 23rd, 2022 to May 23rd, 2023, and that the balance of the insurance reserve, $15,520.32, be transferred to partially offset the increased cost, and that the remaining budget shortfall be covered by additional savings to be found within the operating budget. Ms. Dent?
Sorry, just to be clear, the amount is $260,643, not $360,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just want to be clear on the amount.
I'm sorry, I thought I said 260. I'm reading from my notes. 260,643 plus applicable taxes. Questions from council? Councillor Fosteraro.
I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I felt this bid, although both presentations were really excellent, I felt this bid was a little bit more frugal by the price of $71,000 difference. So, and offering approximately the same services and even less deductibles. So that's why I would definitely support this motion.
Are there any other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion? And that is carried. And from the Director of Protective Services, we have a policy update on vehicle backup. I have a motion from Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar, whereas the health and safety of municipal employees and the public are top priority and of council, and whereas it is recommended that all corporate vehicles have backup alarms installed, therefore be it resolved that council accept the amendment to policy 6.8, vehicle backing up, authorizing the installation of backup beepers on all municipal vehicles. Comments, questions? Councillor Roy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just like to say it's about time we do get beepers on our smaller vehicles, especially. I know that it's kind of embarrassing when you turn it on, you're on Main Street and you have a pickup truck, but it's for the safety of everybody, and having driven vehicles with backup beepers, 100% in favor.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Raymond, how many vehicles are we talking about?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure how many public works vehicles there are. It'll just be all the half tons because all of the large equipment already have the backup beepers on it. So I can guess maybe between parks and public works, less than 20. I could be wrong, but.
Do you have a cost per vehicle on the backup beepers?
No, I don't. There are a few different ones we can get. There's ones that just you remove your backup light bulb and you're reversing, and you can stick one in. So they are probably under $10 a piece. I'd have to speak to Public Works and Bernie to see which ones he thinks are the best.
I'm just wondering, council, since we don't have this budgeted and since this we don't have a cost, I would like to defer. Ms. Scott?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to comment on the expense of the backup beepers. They've already been sourced from Public Works as part of health and safety, and they were within our operating budget and would be available to purchase currently.
Okay, that's important information. Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I suppose this would go a long way towards insurance probability with any accidents. Probably the first thing that they would want to ask us.
Are there any other questions of council? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And from the Director of Public Services, the installation of a 203-foot telecommunications tower. I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar, whereas the existing telecommunication tower hosts the communication equipment for the Blind River Fire Department, the Blind River Public Works, Mississauga First Nation Fire Department, and Mississauga First Nation Public Works Department. And whereas the existing 120-foot tower does not provide sufficient range for communications in northern sectors of the municipality, and whereas the existing tower can no longer be safely maintained, and whereas a newer, higher tower will provide a greater service area, and whereas a newer, higher tower provides potential for additional broadband expansion, therefore be it resolved that council approve the installation of a new 203-foot telecommunications tower to be installed adjacent to the old tower at the Town of Blind River Water Tower site. Questions, comments? Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just a quick comment, and maybe I got this wrong, but I thought we were looking at a tower that belonged to MNRF. Was that something else? Am I getting this wrong?
Mr. Raymond?
Through you, Madam Mayor, for the last, I'd say 5 to 6 months, I've been trying to work with the MNR to get any information out of them, and I have not gotten a response. And we're at the point now where our tower cannot be climbed. So if anything happens to it, we lose our radio system. We can't have anybody go up to repair it.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Once the new tower has been installed and everything is operational, will the old tower be removed?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, there's no plan to remove it at this point. ExplorerNet still has their contract for the next 2 years to be on that tower. We may look at it after the contract is finished, but at this time it has to stay for ExplorerNet.
Thank you. And are there any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. For service delivery review status, May 22nd, we had a service delivery review update. Does council have any questions on our service delivery review? Seeing none. Presentation of committee reports. Corporate Services met on April 25th, and you'll see that there are 5 motions in front of council requiring a review and passing resolutions. The first one is on the social media policy, and this is moved by Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Wells. Be it resolved that council adopt the social media policy as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Questions, comments? All in favor? And that's carried. The second topic was with regards to municipal land inventory progress. This has been moved by Councillor Jim Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the CAO clerk to engage in rezoning process for the property described as lot 87-90, Plan 180 Cobden Blind River, also known as Talbot's Park, as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Questions, comments? Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just reading in the report where it said February 2022, the province brought forward a report of the Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force for more homes, yada, yada. I just want to make sure that when we say affordability, it isn't just low income. I'm hoping that this is the land will be available for any type of building, whether it be for low income or maybe, you know, people who, because we have no housing here, even for people who have jobs. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's inclusive to everybody. So we're not just pigeonholing it and saying that this is for low income only. I want to be able to throw it out there. And I mean, if we do get the best offer from, you know, a contractor who's building low income, fine. If it's somebody who wants to put up a, I don't know, you know, an apartment building such as we have up at top of the Murray Street, then great. Or Huron, I guess it'd be. Anyways, I just want to make sure that we're not pigeonholing that property. So that's my comment on that one.
Ms. Scott, would you like to comment on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, to you, Councillor Roy. This process would be a rezoning for a multi-residential area. And then council, through the report recommendation, would be listing the property for sale to possible investors or whomever may want to pick up the property for that purpose. They would bring that, business proposal to council for council to review, but I'm sure that any investor would be doing some studies to see what the needs were for the area as well. But this isn't, it wouldn't be council saying it's for low income or any income specific. It would be for rezoning for multi-residential.
And are there any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. And on the municipal land, the COVID funding allocations, I have a motion from Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor Posterero. Be it resolved that council transfer $13,822.57 from the Safe Restart Reserve to cover the 2021 COVID-related expenses and revenue shortfalls as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Questions, Comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. And on required interest allocations, I have a motion from Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the following interest amounts be allocated to the obligatory reserve funds for 2021. OSEF, $3,493.88. CCBF, $2,435.51. And provincial gas tax, $395.15, as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Comments, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion? And that's carried. And I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council approve the preliminary list of 2021 year-end transfers to the reserve as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And moving on to Community Services meeting of April 27th, 2022. I have a motion from Councillor Jim Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Pastorero. Whereas Cameco has identified May 26, 2022 as their annual Cameco Cares Day, therefore be it resolved that council authorize the CAO clerk to formally accept the project list provided by Cameco Corporation for their Cameco Cares Day, and that the community center be made available for Cameco employees to hold their breaks and lunch hour as recommended by the Community Services Committee. Comments? Questions? Councillor Jim Dunbar.
It doesn't pertain to this year, but I'm just wondering, Madam Mayor, is there someone sitting close to you? Because I'm getting quite a bit of spillover on a mic on what I'm hearing. And I have Katie flashing in front of me on and off. And I'm thinking that maybe if there is Pam sitting close to you? No? Or you got a lot of people on the Wi-Fi there?
Could be. I can't answer the technical question. I can only address the motion in process.
Yeah, okay. I just was wondering because I'm getting spillover from your mic, like it's like a hollow cave.
Ms. Bittner is on the line. Maybe she can help you.
Unfortunately not. I'm sorry, Councillor Dunbar. I just want to make one note, since the resolution is quite specific, that the community center will be made available. The arena ice service will be made available, as will be in full swing for the elections. So typically we would use the upstairs in the hall, but the downstairs surface is clean and in tip-top shape and ready for the employees to be able to eat and relax for their lunch.
Sounds great. Thank you. And Councillor Dunbar, I do apologize for the in and out, but maybe it's gremlins out there. Who knows? All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thanks, everyone.
Councillor Summers did have a question. Oh, I saw her hand up.
Did you have a question, Councillor Summers?
I was just going to say that Miss Scott is not flashing. Her screen is flashing, just to be, just for people to know out there.
There we go. All right, under unfinished business, we have a motion from Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar. Whereas the proposal for a lot addition for 880 and 940 Pole Line Road has been amended to request consent to sever lands described as Part 4 on Plan AR-48 from the subject property located at 940G Pole Line Road for a lot addition to the subject property located at 880 Pole Line Road. And whereas the application is in conformity with the official plan zoning bylaw and is inconsistent with the provincial policy statement, therefore be it resolved that council authorize the approval of consent application for the subject lands at 880 and 940 Pole Line Road with the following conditions: that all outstanding taxes be paid, that an administrative processing fee be paid to the corporation of the town of Blind River, and that no certificate be issued after 2 years from the day the notice of decision is sent. And we have Kevin Jarvis from TELEC on the line. Should council have any questions for him? Councillor Jim Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Kevin, I guess where I'm going with this is that I believe the rest of the council was privy to other information prior to this, but the conditions that we're putting on here, is this going to put this to bed here right now? Because what I've been informed, or what I'm led to believe, that maybe there's other surveys that are maybe be required. Is this going to put this to bed once and for all? I mean, on this plan of subdivision out there, or is there other work that's are going to be needed shortly down the road or for future council with this problem we've had up there?
Thank you for the question. Through you, your worship, and to the member of council. By way of very brief introduction, my name is Kevin Jarvis. I'm a senior planner with TELEC Engineering. Happy to be speaking to this revised application. To directly answer the question, of course, any future application could be made over either the existing subject lands or any other lands that are in the area for either lot addition or easement or what have you under the Planning Act. And there's no means to preclude a future application that's made by a member of the public or any of the property owners in the area, again, for lot addition or easement. However, what this revision does do is refine the geographic scope of the lands that are being considered for addition through this specific active application to only those lands that are described again as the part 4 on that plan of subdivision. So it is removing, in fact, the extent of lands that were discussed certainly in the prior public hearing with relation to some concerns around access out to the Crown Road, out to the west.
Just as a follow-up, Madam Mayor, if I may, that's the elephant in the room. I believe this council was concerned about the access. So with this new application change, and with these things here that you just read out, I think Madam Mayor had put in or read them, is this going to take care of the access problem we have out there?
Through your worship, so as was discussed in the prior public hearing, the matter around access over the existing or the subject lands to enable access to the existing other lots that are further along Red Lake is not really part of the consideration of the application. Any consideration around access or any existing permission for either the applicants that are subject to the application or any other property owners in the area would not change through this lot addition application, would not change through the transfer of the extent of lands that are considered through this revised application. So as such, the revised application doesn't address any access deficiencies that may be on the ground right now, but it also doesn't change any kind of existing condition.
Councillor Pastoraro?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this might seem a bit redundant, but a very similar question. So with the revised acquisition, they're only looking at lot 4, which is the adjacent lot, and it's no longer touching at all this contentious right-of-way access that was on the highway easement. So we would not need to put in a condition for access with the current request as it stands, just because although we don't need to, we'd be following all the regulations by approving it. I don't want to get into a situation where we are creating massive litigation for residents that have been there for decades. And I know that's not our duty, but I would definitely not be in favor of something where you're creating this litigation mess for several Blind River residents. So I just want to be very clear that the access that is there on the Thibodeau property remains untouched by this new acquisition of Lot 4.
Thank you for the question. Again, I can respond to that in saying that, well, actually, I'll respond twofold. Number one, as we had heard actually at the last public hearing, the actual delineation of the access road that is used by all those neighbors on the ground is not, it has not been surveyed. We don't have the information in terms of where the actual traveled road falls. However, of course, in those prior discussions, there was a perceived concern around the transfer of the lands outside of the Lot 4 that provide an extent or a strip of land all the way to the westerly extent of that parcel. So that westerly extent has now been removed. It's impossible for me to address, does this application now deal with or provide any kind of additional access rights or to anyone that's using that traveled road? Because again, it's this application is purely a swap of an extent of land from one property owner to the other without actually touching or having any kind of ramifications for the existing access permissions that are over wherever the extent of that traveled road is.
Councillor Roy,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just like a recorded vote on this one, please.
duly noted. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Kevin? Councillor Wells?
So thank you, Mayor Hagman. Kevin, in your report dated April 29, there are 5 conditions that are recommended. Number 3 was a final plan of survey, and number 4, the application for an easement or right of way. Now, those 2 suggested conditions have not been included in the motion before us. Should they be included, or is there a reason why they were left out?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question through you, Your Worship. Conditions number 3 and 4 certainly responded to the prior iteration or extent of application that was active at the time. That included the full extent of the lands that were north of both lots 3 and 4, including the sliver, providing again that access to the west. Because of this revised application, those conditions are no longer relevant because first of all, an access easement is no longer required because the parent parcel, so the very large parcel owned by the Thibodeaus, will continue to have that sliver as part of their own property as it is now out to the west. So we would not be introducing a quote unquote landlocked situation if that easement condition was not required. And with regard to the condition for a plan of survey, the lands that are now subject to the application for transfer are already described through a plan of survey, being the AR-48 that was referenced in the resolution. So because those lands are already described through a plan of survey that's been deposited at the Land Registry Office, a new survey to describe that same extent is not required.
Councillor Prospero, followed by Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one other question in the report as well, dated April 29th, the last sentence of the first paragraph that states the proposed lot addition would result in the retained lands no longer benefiting from its former access to the Westerly Crown Access Road and become a water access only lot with frontage on Lake Lozon and Red Lake. So would they not still benefit from that road access? Of course, it's private, it's not assumed by the municipality in any way, but would they not still benefit from that travel road access to their property? And is that like a taxation issue? Because if you're water access only, your taxation is a lot less than if you have road access as well. So I'm just wondering what that is about.
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. The parent parcel and the lands to be retained through the application do not have a registered easement or do not have an easement registered on their title to provide that access to the westerly extent, because currently, as the parcel is now, they have the full ownership of the sliver out to the west. Of course, with the removal of that sliver through the prior iteration of the application, that access would be removed because the actual physical boundaries of the parcel no longer touch the westerly extent. So the intent of that condition, which has now been removed from the resolution, was to maintain appropriate access to that crown road to the west, so that again, the application was in conformity with the official plan with regard to not creating a landlocked parcel.
And Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Kevin, I guess I'm going to echo Councillor Jay Dunbar's concern earlier, but is there anything that this council can do to ensure, or steps that this council can take to ensure that future councils do not have to revisit this issue?
Thank you for the question. If I can respond relatively bluntly, I'm not aware of any means to preclude the ability to make an application in future for any other extent of land in the area, whether it's in relation to the parent parcel or in relation to the benefiting lands or any of the neighbors' lands that may want to make any sort of Planning Act application in the future. Those applications would have to be looked at on their own merits, and very much the review of those applications would be scoped to what that ask is at the time, and of course the policy considerations that are relevant. I'm not aware of any means to, again, preclude or remove the ability to make a Planning Act application, which is a legislative right in the province.
Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Kevin, you've been out there then and gone over the whole area?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Your Worship. No, I have actually not visited the site in person. Of course, our review has been very much from a desktop perspective, looking at the extent of land, the legal descriptions of all the parcels that are both subject to the application and those that are neighboring the area, and certainly those properties that are related to some of the residents that had submitted concerns letters or letters of support at the last hearing. And very much so from that desktop exercise, we're quite confident in our policy analysis of the application, and feel quite confident in both the memo that was provided as part of the last public hearing and the addendum memo that was just provided a number of days ago.
Deputy Mayor Summers.
Just a comment here. The piece of property that he's amended, this part that he's going to be taking, is exactly the part, Councillor Dunbar, that you had said at the public meeting, that if he was only asking for that piece of property, you would have no problem letting it go through. I think that's probably why he chose to pull back on his on the property that he was going to be taking, because it was going to be costing him a lot more by having to make those other two things in that report that he would have to do in order to be able to get that property. And so it probably wasn't worth it to him to go through all of that to get that little piece and then the piece of the road. So I believe that's probably why he pulled back. It's just taking the adjacent property beside him, which I was in agreement with you, Councillor Dunbar, in that if that was all he was looking for, then I would have had no problem agreeing to it at that time as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. Are there any other comments on this motion, resolution? Jennifer.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without getting off track too much. I think many of us are very concerned with the fact that we don't want to create this litigation nightmare of right of way. And although it's not our job to do that, because this application is just looking at them getting an additional lot, to answer Councillor Wells in a kind of way, the only way we could get around this was if we would try to assume that road, which we're definitely not in a financial position to do. And or the residents that have that access to get written right of way access, I would assume, Kevin, would that be their way of protecting themselves, is from the Thibodaux, is to get it in writing, so that that nightmare would never be a scenario in the future should it get sold off in pieces? Because definitely option one's out. We're never going to assume that road, and it's not financially feasible. So would the way to clarify that be for those landowners that are currently having this unofficial right of way to actually put that in writing somehow?
Thank you for the question, through you. I can certainly say that on a very high level, from a high level perspective, absolutely the gold standard is to obtain access easements that are registered on title, benefiting any individuals that are traversing a private roadway. What I would though say is, given the scope of the application, and again, the fact that given the nature of the application, that it's only a transfer of a portion of land from one owner to the other without changing any kind of existing access rights or provisions beyond what is already on the ground now, to deal with that kind of consideration through this application, maybe beyond the scope of what would normally be considered. So yeah, absolutely. The ideal situation is for everyone to work together, certainly, and to obtain easements and cleaning up title. However, any kind of further discussion around rights of access and rights to traverse the road as it is on the ground, I would say, and as was discussed in the prior hearing, would be a more appropriate discussion between a property owner, a lawyer, and the other property owners that would be subject to that easement.
And Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I just wanted to note for council that this road access is not only affected by lot 4, it also is affected with lot 3 and 2, as well as the main parcel. So by denying the application because you're concerned about the access, it doesn't alleviate the access from all of the other portions of the properties that this road goes through. So there is no remedy other than what Mr. Jarvis has said, by having each property owner obtain access through legal title.
Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maybe Ms. Scott, you might be able to enlighten me on, do you have any idea when that subdivision, Pana subdivision, when this all came to council, what year was this? Was this pre-annexation?
I don't have the dates in front of me, Councillor Dunbar, but I'm going to venture out and say that yes, it would have been.
It looks like Kevin there might have something to say there, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, very quickly.
Scott?
My apologies, very quickly, just to say that plan AR 48 was registered in 1962, which created the overall subdivision itself.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. I'm not seeing any more hands up, so I would imagine that we have received all the answers that we need in terms of this motion. We are asked, I did hear a recorded vote, so I will turn the floor over to Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor Summers.
In favor.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar.
In favor.
Councillor Jim Dunbar.
In favor.
Councillor Steve Wells.
In favor.
Councillor HP Roy.
Be opposed on this.
Councillor Jennifer Pastorero.
In favor of the lot 4 acquisition.
And Mayor Hagman.
In favor.
And that is carried.
Thanks, everyone. And Kevin, thank you so much for attending it tonight. That was very helpful in terms of answering council's questions.
My pleasure as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to correspondence requiring action. We had a notice of motion at the last council meeting from Councillor Dunbar, re mandatory mask mandate. And I have a motion from Councillor Jim Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Wells. Whereas the elimination of mandatory mask mandate has been eliminated by the provincial government, and whereas the province has now spiraled into its sixth wave of COVID variants, therefore be it resolved that council direct the CAO clerk to prepare a policy regarding the mandatory requirements of masks while attending any meeting of council, committee, or board in the council chambers to help prevent further spreading of COVID-19 virus. Comments, questions? Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'm not going to take up too much of council's time here tonight, seeing that there's been a second motion presented down below, and I believe council will find it favorable. I do want to say thank you to the councillors who may have shown me support over my notice of motion, but I actually believe rather than causing any division or, you know, animosity between us councillors, because I think we have a pretty good thing going here right now. As the virus has already done, you know, to many families and friends already, it's created some turmoil, that I'm going to withdraw my original notice of motion in favor of the second motion presented here tonight.
So I will write on this motion, Councillor Dunbar, that it has been withdrawn by yourself. Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry, slow writing. Moving on to the second motion, moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar. Be it resolved that council continue to hold council and committee meetings via Zoom until such time that it becomes safe to hold them in person. Comments, discussion? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I believe that the second motion is a reasonable one because it enables us to avoid the issue of restricting access to a public meeting if an individual does not want to wear a mask. My only concern might be that it's a little bit open-ended as to such time as when it becomes safe to hold them in person. I'm wondering if we could amend that to say when council determines that it is safe to hold them in person, because otherwise there's really no determination as of when the safety occurs.
So do you want to say that council becomes comfortable to hold them in person? I'm getting a lot of hands going up here. Councillor Pastorero, and then Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Councillor Jim Dunbar is the seconder, so he can go first.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Madam. Thank you, Councillor Pastorero. Yeah, I believe the last line should read until such time council determines to hold them in person. That's the way I would like to see it, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, duly noted. Okay, got it.
Thank you,
Any,
Councillor Pastorero.
anything else, Councillor Jim Dunbar, before I turn it over to Councillor Pastorero? Good. Okay, Councillor Pastorero.
Now I'm going to mess it up even more. Thanks, Madam
Okay.
Mayor. So my concern with this is I would like to see a melding of Councillor Dunbar and Councillor Wells's motion here, because there are certain boards and committees that wish to meet in person, as the Ontario government and our public health unit have already deemed it safe to be meeting. Hence, they removed the mask mandates and have opened up many of the mandates that were protecting people from COVID. So if we're on motion 2, what I would like to see is that where it says that council and committees continue to hold meetings via Zoom, unless they wish to hold them in person. And if they are in person, that masks be worn. Like I understand that there is the plexiglass barriers, but now knowing the science that it's airborne, that's not going to do anything. So I do like Councillor Dunbar's suggestion of masks. So if we are going to choose to be in person, that we would recommend people wear masks. And I believe we still have a policy on the books for masks and vaccines, or do we not, Ms. Scott? So I would like there to be a melding of Councillor Dunbar's and Councillor Wells's motion, so that you can choose to meet in person, because some things are better in person, especially if it's sensitive topics. It's not best served over Zoom. So just given that we're in the climate of choice, I would hope that that we would look at those both scenarios.
Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you said, Councillor Foster area muddied the waters there. I don't get it. The government has taken away the mandates. I don't care if you're a lawyer, a teacher, a janitor, a retiree. We all have the option to put a mask on, because if we're asking people who come in just to town hall to do a meeting to wear the mask, then why aren't we asking everybody? All our employees should be wearing masks then, or the public works should still be wearing masks, because they're still sitting in the same trucks. The fire department, the museum, you name it, they all have to get back into masking. And I don't think that that's proper at this point. If somebody feels that they need to wear a mask, it should be their option, put it on, okay? I go into the post office, I go into the Value Mart, whatever, I'll put my mask on. But I don't think that it should be mandated in every building around. It's up to us whether or not we're gonna put it on. And a lot of people are in the post office without a mask, and it's up to them. So I think we're all old enough here and we're all smart enough. If we're going to use one, fine. If not, don't use one. You know, it's our choice at this point. The government has taken that mandate off, and we shouldn't have to be mandated to wear one. And I don't think that we as council should be mandating people to wear masks after the government has said, well, we don't need to wear them. Thank you.
Councillor Pastorell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hence the verbiage of recommend, because as we've pointed out, the government has stripped those mandates, be it based on science or election. We can all debate that fact. But when we're talking about recommend, right, you want to do what's in the best interest of the common good, right, instead of self-interest. So you would hope that if anyone is experiencing symptoms that they would wear one, right? So I would be more comfortable with the word recommend at this time. I have already been sacrificed in my family due to the removal of mask mandates. So it's freedom of choice. I get it. But that also with a right becomes a responsibility. If you do have symptoms, please think of others before yourself and wear a mask.
So Councillor Pastorell, can you give me the verbiage that you wish to have on this amended?
So for motion 2, be it resolved that council continue to hold council and committee meetings via Zoom unless desired in person, and if the meetings are in person, that masks be recommended.
So after Zoom, unless meeting in person?
Unless the committee or council determines it needs to meet in person, and if so, masks are recommended. And the removal of that when council determines that it's safe to do so, because our government and public health unit have already determined that it's safe.
Okay, so we're going to take out, Councillor Wells, are you okay with that? You go ahead.
Well, actually, I was thinking, sorry, thank you, Mayor Hagman. I was thinking that I like the original version of the second motion better. This is really getting muddy, isn't it? Because if we agree to continue to hold Zoom meetings, then wearing masks becomes a moot point.
Yeah.
And we don't have to require people to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. We just continue to Zoom. And I can't speak for the rest of council, but certainly for the rest of the term of this council, I don't have any problem meeting by committee and council by Zoom. Works for me.
I think that
Me too.
where Councillor Pastorero is coming from is that there are 2 meetings being held tomorrow in the council chambers. What I would suggest, Councillor Pastorero, is that for those meetings that we put a little notice on the door to say, not mentioning names, but a member of this board would be more comfortable if people wore masks. Would you be all right with that?
I think like HP said, we're all adults. I think we should be responsible. It's that lovely honor code system where if you have symptoms, the mask is to protect your droplets. It's not to protect others. It's to help the others in the room from you. So if you have any symptoms, then you should be wearing a mask, right? So we have all the guidance from Algoma Public Health. People need to start listening to it. Right. So I don't think we even need to go to that far. It's just like we would still recommend that you wear a mask following Algoma Public Health guidelines.
So do we need to say that, or are you comfortable with the second resolution as it had been changed?
So as it states right now on my e-scribe, it says if a committee or board decides to hold in-person meetings that council recommend masks be worn, maybe throw in there following Algoma Public Health guidelines, just as a reminder. We're adults. We should know to do this.
Councillor Wells.
No, thank you, Mayor Hagman. So if a committee or board decides to meet in person, is the option to attend the meeting by Zoom still available? If a member of the committee does not want to wish to attend an in-person meeting, either with or without a mask?
The preference has been to be in person as opposed to Zoom meeting. The preference of the board, it would be like your library board, I would presume. Are they meeting via Zoom or are they meeting in person?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I think, just trying to remember the last few meetings, I think most members of the library board are meeting by Zoom.
Okay.
I think there were 1 or 2 in the library just to manage the computer and to chair the meeting.
Councillor Roy, followed by Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is really getting muddy. I've been to a few places now where they put a sign on their doors that say mask optional. And I think that right there gets people thinking. And I've seen people run back to their vehicle and put them on. This would be in the Sioux area where I've been working now and then. So that might just be an option. Just put something like that on the back door, just to remind people, you know, we don't have to muddy the waters and say, okay, well, if you feel a sniffle, you know, put it on, because we are all adults. So maybe just put that, maybe have something like that where mask optional, give them an idea, let them think.
Okay. Councillor Jim Dunbar.
I received an email today and it was an article, and I believe Algoma Public Health mentioned that they were meeting via Zoom. Is that correct?
That is correct. And you'll also see that in that article that I was quoted to say, we are leaders and we lead by example.
Well, I think in that article, the first comment of that article, I would tend to side with.
I haven't got the article in front of me, Councillor Dunbar, but the word that we received at our meeting was that from the Algoma Medical Officer of Health, who is acting at this time, was that he felt confident that those that are not wearing masks are doing so because they have been told by the province they can do that, and that those that are showing symptoms are isolating and staying at home. And the numbers are trending down in our district. Councillor Pastorero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And pertaining to that article where it says that there would be a revolt if there was mask mandates reinstated. The problem with that is, though, the loudest voices aren't always the correct ones. But what we want to do is just ensure that everyone in our community is safe. And so with the current signage that we already have signage on the door saying, please wear masks for our staff to keep them safe, right? And the squeaky wheel that got the oil, basically COVID has already ripped through our community. And now the question is, who hasn't had COVID? So at this point in time, there are people like us that serve on 2 boards that it has been in person for a while now. So the only thing is that when we are in person, just to ensure that everybody still understands that the good for the common good is more important than self-serving ideals, right? And yes, we're all adults, but like HP said, that simple sign that still is on our door, please be considerate, like wear a mask, right? Many of us that have already had COVID right after the lifting of the mandates. So we're in our period of antibodies and immunity. But yeah, so as far as this goes, I like the motion that stands there. The only thing is that according to the province and the public health, they don't want to have these mandates anymore. So if they don't want to have the mandates, then they are telling the province that it is safe, right? And that you have to do your own at-risk scenario. You have to do your own calculations. So I think we can do that. But if we're in person, if you have symptoms, just wear a mask, right? So
The e-scribe says, be it resolved that council continue to hold council and committee meetings via Zoom until such time as council determines it is safe to hold them in person. And whereas if a committee or board member decides to hold in-person meetings, that council recommends masks be worn following Algoma Public Health guidelines. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
All in favor? And that is carried. And for the purposes of our deputy clerk, I'm just going to say see e-scribe because it's been changed a lot on this formal connection.
Madam Mayor, would we not be able to have a requested recorded vote on this, please?
Sure. I didn't hear that until this moment.
My sound was going.
Okay. Well, I'll take my name off then, and yes, we can have a recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor
Yes.
Summers,
In favor.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Jim Dunbar,
I'm in favor.
Councillor Steve Wells,
I'm opposed to the amended motion.
Councillor Jennifer Pastorero.
in favor.
Sorry, Councillor Roy. Councillor Roy,
I'm gonna be against it.
Mayor Hagman,
In favor.
and that is carried.
Thank you. Okay. The next, we had a request from Maplegate House for Women for support, and I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar. Whereas council recognizes the need for temporary housing for those who are homeless, and whereas the Maplegate organization offers a much needed service to those in need, therefore be it resolved that council defer the request from Maplegate to fund a bed annual in the amount of $10,000 to the 2023 budget deliberations. Questions, comments? Councillor Roy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a great thing. I think that, you know, to help people get off the street is great and help people in need. I'm just wondering if we could get them to maybe give us a presentation. I did read the letter that came along with it, and that's fine. Right now, what they're asking for 10,000 per year. That's what it looks like to me annually. So are we going to encumber future councils with this, or do we just say 10,000 and then let the next council decide on the next 4 years? But I still would like to hear what they have to say. I think that it's definitely a good thing, but I would defer till we actually spoke to them, till we actually had a chance to hear their pitch.
And
Just saying.
in response to your comments, the reason that it was deferred was because it is an annual request. It was felt that this should be something, it was not part of the 2022 budget, and the 2022 budget has been set.
Okay.
So which is why it's being deferred to 2023.
So just to get it straight, it's just going into deliberations, but can we still get somebody here to give us a presentation? That would be kind of nice. Or have we had one? Because I haven't seen it.
We could certainly ask.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And from the Alzheimer's Society, the Forget Me Not raffle tickets, I have a motion from Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the sale of Forget Me Not raffle tickets within the town limits of Blind River for the Alzheimer's Society of Sault Ste. Marie and Algoma District. Questions, comments? Councillor Jim Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Years ago, we used to have an individual who represented the Alzheimer's here. Looks like everybody froze.
No, we can hear you.
Do we
can
have
hear you
any?
fine.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any representation here in town with the Alzheimer's anymore? Maybe Ms. Scott?
I'm seeing Ms. Bittner coming online to answer your question.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my screen to work. Yes, just a reminder, Councillor Dunbar, that we do have the Alzheimer's Gems Club at the Seniors Center, and they're every Tuesday. And we do have a minimum of 2 workers that take care of that group. The municipality liaises regularly with the Sault Ste. Marie office. What I can say, although anecdotally, is they are a thrill to work with. They're very easygoing and focused on keeping this type of service alive and well in Algoma. COVID has been just as challenging on them as our other service clubs and nonprofits. They're doing everything possible to earn revenues to keep these programs going and ensure they are affordable for people requiring relief for their loved ones.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bittner. Any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And moving on to information, on April 22nd, the Solicitor General sent a memo for free care for outdoor dogs. No questions on that correspondence. On April 25th, we received a motion of the Provincial Day of Action on Litter, and we do have information of that coming forward on a different date, but definitely happening. April 25th, Cunningham, Swan, Carty, Little, and Boham, the annual Integrity Commissioner report for 2021. I think the council can pat ourselves on the back that there is nothing to report. We're as transparent as we could ever be, and that's a good thing. So we're not costing our taxpayers. April 26th, MPAC gave their annual report. And April 27th, Algoma Public Health has board meeting minutes from March 23rd. And from our Director of Facilities and Community Services, we have a community cleanup. And this is spearheaded by Bailey Mitchell. It's taking place on May 18th at the town park at 6:30, and bags and gloves are going to be supplied. So thank you, Bailey, for initiating this on behalf of Jeunesse Nord, and to everyone who is going to come out. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And Ms. Bittner, would you like to add anything to that?
I do, thank you, Mayor Hagman. Ms. Bailey, in her proactive get up and go since this report was created, I just want to clarify that she even managed to find Cameco to donate bags and gloves and pickers. So we have extra bags if they do run out, or if anybody else in the community wants to run a similar project. We did make sure we have those things set aside, but way to go, Bailey. I don't want to take any of her thunder. She's done a lot of extra work to make this happen.
So 6:30, May 18th, let's all be there with our sticks and we can get our garbage, for sure. There were no notices of motion for this meeting or introduction and consideration of bylaws. Council reports and announcements, I received none. Moving on, addendum, we have none. So I have a motion from Councillor Pastorero, seconded by Councillor Summers. Be it resolved that council go into a closed meeting at 8:51 p.m. in accordance with section 239 of the Municipal Act in order to address matters pertaining to personnel and also pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. All in favor of this motion? That is carried, and we are completed the open portion of this meeting for the time being. And for those who are not joining us, have a great evening. And for those of you that will be coming back, we'll see you on the other side of the break. Thanks, everyone. And welcome back, everyone, to the open portion of our meeting. I have a motion from Councillor Jim Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council resume the open meeting at 9:18 p.m. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And when we were in closed, we discussed personnel and also a proposed or pending acquisition and intellectual properties. Coming back, we have moved by Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Wells. Resolution Council has surplus the senior center located at 17 Michigan Avenue. And whereas there is no formal offers have been received, therefore we are exploring further, and we will accept the proposal from Roy Lepage to list the property at a future date. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor Jim Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to sign bylaw 22-31, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Blind River, to adopt the minutes of the meeting of May 2nd, 2022, was passed in open council this second day of May, 2022. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. And last but not least, I have a motion from Councillor Pastorero, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council adjourn the meeting at 9:20 p.m. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.